In today's tutorial, we'll knit the Patons Polka Dot Knit Hat by Yarnspirations.com. This hat tutorial will function more like a class where I'll teach you circular needles and DPNs, so stay tuned. Welcome back to another Yarnspirations tutorial. I'm your host, Kristen Mangus of GoodKnitKisses. Let's get started. In today's tutorial, you'll need a bulky number 5 weight yarn. We're using Patons Alpaca Blend in color Yam. We're going to make the Polka Dot Knit Hat by Yarnspirations.com featuring Patons Alpaca Blend. This is a roving yarn. It is an easy pattern, and the size is to fit one average woman, and one whole ball will get that for you. The gauge is 15 stitches and 20 rows in 4-inch stockinette stitch on the larger needles that we'll go over in just a moment. The hat works a ribbing, and then the main body of the hat with this cute polka dot pattern here, and then it's going to shape the crown area and bind off, so it's all worked in the round. And it calls for DPNs, or double pointed needles, in the pattern. I think for an easy pattern that a circular needle using the magic loop is going to work really well for you. So I'm actually going to show both in the pattern. So I suggest watching the whole video and deciding which one you want to use. You might decide you want to shape the crown with the DPNs. You might decide you want to do everything in the circulars. You might decide to do the DPNs using the whole thing, or a combination of that. So let's go over what you need. Just one ball of the Patons Alpaca Blend. The color Celestial is what they show in the model sample here. And this is color Yam that I'm using. It's one ball. It's 155 yards. And then it calls for a set of 4 double pointed needles, or you can use a circular, which is what I'm using. A 16 inches is fine, or a little bit longer, in fact, is just fine. So if you don't have the right cord, it's perfect, because this magic loop is going to work. So we want a size US 8 5mm needle and a US 10 6mm needle. The 8 is used for the ribbing, and the 10 is used for the body of the hat and the shaping of the crown. Again, we're going to go over both of those. All right, let's get our supplies and get started. To download your copy of the pattern, click in the link of the description below. As with any of my videos, I always suggest to go ahead and watch the entire video from start to finish so that you know where to pick back up. We're going to go over the pattern first, so I suggest you keep watching. Well, let's open up here and talk about these needles. This is a circular needle, and if you have never worked in the round before, you can work in the round with a circular needle, which is either fixed or it's interchangeable. These have a little key on them, and that helps me open these up and change out the needle size and leave the cable where it is in all my stitches. And then I have DPNs, or double pointed needles. You can work with as many as 3 or 4 or 5. Usually a pattern will call for 4 or 5. Now this pattern happens to talk about using 4 of them. I'm using 5 needles. Now that's because I've gone ahead in the pattern, and I've actually noticed something that's not written in the pattern, but it is more intuitive, meaning you won't have to look at the pattern as much with the DPNs once you get going, especially on the shaping of the crown and one little increase area in the beginning. So I want to show you how to cast on, which works for both, and I'll show you how to join in both, and then the brim and the body in the circular needles. And then I will show you how to do shaping on the circulars just a little bit, and then I'll show you how to do it on the double pointed needles. It's basically the same thing. However, with the double pointed needles, it helps with a really quickie math problem, and it helps you in your head. So I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's get started here. We're going to start our cast on, and we need to cast on 80 stitches. Now we're going to do a long tail cast on. Just jump to the next part if you know how to do that. I've got the long tail here. Okay, this is the tail, the end of my yarn, and that is towards me. And let me make sure this is tilted the right way. That part's towards me, and the ball yarn is coming towards the back. So the ball is in the back. All right, so we're going to grab our yarn here, split it with our finger and thumb, take our needle, pull back, and scoop up through the thumb, down through the finger, down through the thumb, and then pull that taut so it's not slipping off the needle, not too tight, not too loose. We're going to do that again. Slip up through the thumb, down through the finger, down through the thumb, and then pull it. So we're going to continue moving on this way. If you need a slower tutorial, I do have those on my channel. And just click and hit the slow button on a desktop or laptop on the YouTube programming, and you can slow this down if you need that. You can also pause and rewind if you need to see a spot again. We will make this pattern from beginning to end. Continue casting on your 80 stitches. I'm going to show you how to start casting on the DPNs, the double pointed needles. So we've got our DPNs, our double pointed needles, and we will be working with only 2 needles at a time. It may surprise you. Okay, so you're always going to have a free needle, and then you will have needles that have stitches on them. Okay, so when I say this is always free, it just means this is the needle you're using to work with. So stitches will constantly be, you'll be working with 2 at a time, making all these stitches come over to this one, and then when this one is free and this one's loaded up, you just take this one and you move on to the next. And that's really how DPNs work. And then these basically act as stitch holders, and you can divide your stitches evenly. All right, so we're going to do a cast on here, and all we need is 1 needle to begin with. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, and I'm going to get my long tail going, wrap around 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Go through here. And now I measured out my tail. Okay, so I'm going to put my slip knot on. And I've got my tail toward me and the ball in the back. Okay, so we're going to do this again. We're going to take the tail part towards us, around our thumb area. So we split that yarn here, pull it back, and scoop up through the thumb, down through the finger, down through the thumb, and pull it. Scoop up, down, down, scoop up, down, down. So it's the same thing. I did do it a little slower in the circular needle. And what I want to do is get 20 stitches on here. Okay, so do 20 stitches. Pause your video as you need. 19, 20. I need to keep going and get 20 stitches on each of 4 needles. You can add on a few more and then stick a stitch marker in between here. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. This is just one of them. Okay, and then when this needle gets filled up, so I'm going to keep pushing more stitches on here, then I'm going to load these stitches onto this needle and kind of keep going. So I'm using this needle here to load all my stitches onto. So let's get as many as we can on here. Okay, so I've got a few of these stitches on here, and I want to start loading them over here. So just going to take a free needle and just slip them directly over. I'm not putting them in knitwise or anything. This is called purlwise. So I'm just slipping it right through here and going across. Just slip all of your stitches up to the stitch marker. Okay, I'm removing this stitch marker here. All right, now, so you may say, oh, it's a little harder to cast on here. All you had to do is just grab your needle and slide it over, and see how this stays connected here. So here we go. Now that I've got a few more on here, you can see how I can actually go ahead and offload some of these stitches and even do it a little differently than I did before, now that you kind of see it going. So let's grab another one. I'll show you another way you can do it. So I'm going to go ahead and slip them from this side. So slide it to this end and slip 1, 2, 3. Okay, and let that stitch marker fall off. And of course it got trapped. Okay, so now I've got 20 on these needles, and then I can just slide this over and continue. And notice how I'm keeping this very straight. I'm not twisting. You got all this cast on area down here together. There's no twisting around. Like this would be if it was twisted around, and we want to keep it nice and straight. Okay, so keep going. It's 3. Keep going until you have 4 needles with 20 on them. So we've got 20 stitches here on each needle. So we have 4 needles, and then we have this 5th that we're going to work with. It may seem overwhelming. I'm going to stop here and not connect it. I'm going to connect it on the circular first, so you can see it how it's connected a little easier if you want to continue in this way. Okay, so I've casted on my 80 stitches for my circular needle, and I want to join them. This is going to be the magic circle technique. You see how I have lots more of this cord here, okay, this long cable. And I want to have my stitch marker handy because you want to mark where your beginning of your round is going to be. Now you see all the stitches here. Okay, this is our cast on. We want to make sure that they're not twisted. Like we don't want them all twisted around, because once you join this, if it's twisted, you're done. You have to frog it all the way back. There's no way to fix that. So we want to make sure and lay it out. Make sure all my stitches fall on the inside here. Okay, now this is the significant thing about this. You will be moving and changing this all the time. So I like to kind of grab behind where a little bit further, like maybe an inch or so behind where this needle stops and then the bend starts taking place. So I'm going to kind of bend it between 2 stitches here and find my cord, and then I'll just pull on it like this. Okay, so now I've pulled on it. I'm going to keep it helps to do this like on a flat surface, at least when you first begin, so you can really see this. Okay, you can do this on your lap, but I think for a beginner it's really easy to do on a table. So now I want to push my stitches into this area here with my needle. Push my needle into all these stitches. Okay, they're kind of looking like they're parallel here. Okay, so we want to make sure that these are still lined up. Okay, so they're all towards the inside of this circle here. This will become your hat where your brim is. All right, so make sure and put your tail aside so you're not grabbing that. All right, so now I want to get my stitches right up to the edge here without falling off, and I'm going to be using my fingers to take some stitches off. So go ahead and get your stitch marker ready. Okay, so now I'm going to slip this stitch off and hold it with my fingers. Okay, I'm going to put it towards the inside or towards me. Okay, and then I'm going to take my left needle and pick up my first stitch on the right needle. You see that? Okay, now making sure my tails and everything are down below. I've still got this other stitch down here. I'm going to scoop that up with my right needle and get all the little hairs on that. And I've just switched places. Okay, that's all I've done. This is going to be my join. Okay, now I'm going to pull on that yarn here, make sure my tail is nice and taut, make sure that my working yarn is nice and taut, like not too tight, but snug. And then I'm going to take my stitch marker and slip it on my right needle, okay, on my dominant hand. And if you're left-handed, you're just going to do this opposite. You may have to watch this in the mirror. Okay, and then this first stitch is going to be a little tighter here to get into. We're going to go work right into it in between the first and second stitch. Go in there, and we're going to make our first knit stitch. If you haven't done a knit stitch, I've got some slower tutorials, and of course you can slow down this video. We'll do a few slow here. Okay, so we're going to put our yarn and our needle in. We're going to yarn over and pull that stitch right on through and let it slip off into the right needle, and make sure and tighten that first stitch up here. And then work into the second stitch. It might be a little snug in the beginning, and knit that stitch. So you've got 2 stitches over on the right. So this is going to be a knit 2, purl 2 technique for the ribbing. So we row 1 or round 1, we knit 2, and now we put our working yarn in between the 2 to the front of our work, and put our needle in the front of that leg here, and then wrap around that needle, yarn over, and push that on through to make that stitch. Let the old fall off. So you now have got a first purl stitch. So your knit stitches look like little tiny V's, and your purl has this little scarf around its neck, a little bump. And then we want to, keep the yarn to the front still and make another purl stitch. And then wrap around, push that through, and let the other one fall off. We've got 2. Yarn to the back again between these needles. Otherwise, it'll make an extra stitch. And then we're going to knit these 2 stitches. So it is going to be knit 2, yarn forward to purl, purl 2, okay, and knit 2. And you're just going to work all the way around. And then when you get to this stitch marker here, okay, so see how you can tell it's already got this series here. We've got knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You can see that series going on. You're going to get all the way over here. These last 2 are going to be purl. Make sure that you're keeping a consistent tension across, and slip this stitch over, and that will mark the beginning. And then just start lining them up with what you see. You'll put 2 purls on top of 2 purls, 2 knits on top of 2 knits, and just keep going round and round and round until you get to 3 inches. Okay, I wanted to pick back up and show you how I'm working when it comes to this magic circle here, okay, this loop. We're going to keep going by, you're just going to continue pushing your needle through so it reveals more of that needle, and this part stays really cinched up, and then I'll show you how to move this along. There's a few different ways to do it. This is just one of them. Okay, so I'm going to continue knitting my pattern. Okay, I've come down to the last stitch here, and I know this is a purl, just happens to be. All right, now this needle is nice and free, and we need to make sure and get this pulled out. So we're just going to go ahead and pinch it back here. Again, as before. And just push that on the needle like that. And my yarn is forward because this was a purl stitch. And so we'll just keep going. Now, you want to keep this area towards the front to you. This is going to be the right side. It's always the right side. Right now it looks like it's just the middle part, but you'll continue working and it will get longer. All right, so let's look at how to connect on the double pointed needles. Okay, so I've got my DPNs here, and this is the line of stitches all set out. And I'm just going to rotate these around. It bends this little stitch down here to connect them. And you can see that all the stitches lay nicely inside. You can see it a lot easier on the DPNs. See that? How you can make a really tight circle here. I know it's a square, but it will be a circle. So I'm going to rotate these around so I can see the first and the last stitches. So I made sure all my stitches are in the inside. Okay, they're not twisted. And then now I'm going to slide my left needle down to where I can get to this stitch here. Slide these needles down to where I can get this stitch here. And go ahead and take the first one off and hold it. And then with my left needle, insert to the first stitch on the right needle and pick that up. And then now I'm going to twist my right needle forward and pick this stitch up that was the other one from the left needle. And now they are joined. So now we're going to knit that first stitch. But before we do that, we want a stitch marker. Place that onto our right needle, and then we're going to knit. And then knit the second, and purl 2, 1, 2, and knit 2, and purl 1, 2. And notice how these other needles, I'm not working. They're just sort of just hanging there. And I've got them evenly distributed so the points are sticking out. And I've got these stitches all squished up in the middle. Okay, so we're just going to keep going around until you get to the end of this needle. And it will become free again. And I'll meet you back at the end of that. Pause your video. See you in a moment. Okay, so coming to the end, I've got 2 stitches left. They're going to be purls. This will happen the same on each needle because they are evenly distributed. If they're not, you want to check your count again. Now this needle gets freed up, and then I just simply rotate. Okay, so now that I've got these on here, you see that I have 3 needles. I did originally call for 4, and I said I was using 5. So I freed this needle up, and I have more than what I need on this needle. I did that because it's actually easier to me. It's easier to join these and have a nice tight join without having to worry about switching to another needle, and that way I can make sure these stitches become tight. So now what I'm going to do is take a moment to load stitches onto this needle. This is not how it's going to be for the rest of the pattern, but it is going to be how I'm going to do it right now. So I'm going to load these 20 stitches on to this needle. And basically you're just going to go until you get to where that stitch marker is. Okay, so let's see, got a few more left. Keep sliding it down. And you're going to see all 4 of these in this nice little square again, but they'll all be attached. Now, if you do put your work down, you're going to want some point protectors so that they don't fall off. These stitches don't fall off the double pointed needles. If you put them in your knitting bag on the go. This is a great on the go project. Okay, so now I'm at my I'm at this marker here. Okay, I don't really need that anymore because this tail can really tell me where we're at, and then the tail is one before this stitch, because if you remember we switched the stitches here, so don't think, oh, the tail should have been in between here for that last stitch. So that's it for that, and then we'll slide this down. Okay, so now you see that we've got it in the round, and now we can start using our free needle to start doing these stitches. Okay, so I'm going to start loading stitches on here by, let's see, twist these to the back. The ones you're not using can just hang. Okay, so I've got my free needle, and now I'm going to work this stitch. Okay, so this one's just hanging. All right, and then I'm going to knit this stitch here with this needle. Just pay attention to the free needle that didn't have anything, and now it just has 1. So I'm just working with this. I'm ignoring this. I'm pretending like it's not here. Okay, now you don't need to pull it out of the way because you'll stretch your stitches. So we've got 2 knits and 2 purls. Okay, and we'll keep going. Now the reason why the marker's off is because it would slide off anyway. I can't really keep that marker on there. However, if you want to have your stitch marker on, okay, you can go back over here, all right, and mark by opening up, do a removable stitch marker, and mark where that first of the round begins. So I'm going to just put one on this very edge here, and then that way I know that's my beginning of my round. Okay, so you're going to keep going around, and when you are finished with a needle, one should be offloaded. You'll constantly have 4 on there. So right now you see 5 being used, so it means that this one is the one that we're working with. Your working yarn is coming, excuse me while I have a mess here. Now you can see what a mess it can look like. The working yarn is coming from the needle that is being used right now. So your working needle has the working yarn on it. Okay, so if you get confused, you put your work down, you're like, okay, take a look. I'm going to set my stuff down. I'm going to take a look. Here's my beginning. Here's my tail. Here's my needle. And they're both working and moving. So that's what I pick up. Okay. All right. So continue along, and you're going to make a ribbing that works to be about 3 inches. And I'll meet you back up for the next section. Let's talk about fixing mistakes. So before you finish your ribbing section, let's look and see if you have any mistakes. Now, mistakes would jump out like an extra little bar that comes across this knitted column, these two knitted columns. You might not see it if it's hidden in the purls. And I'm looking at this like this, and I'm not seeing it here. However, if I flip it over the back, I've already spotted one, and I want to show you how to fix it. This is on the purl side, but let's just pretend it's on your front side. And either way, if you notice it, you can mark it and then come back to it later when you're done with your ribbing section and not fret that you messed up. I've got one back here too that I should have fixed as well. When I come back around to that round, I'll fix that. So let's look at fixing this. So I've got it pinned, and I'm come to the point of my knitting where I need to take care of it. So I've got this stitch here, and I just want to drop it off. Don't freak out, okay? So I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to get these little ladders coming out, okay? These lines coming in between the stitches are the ladders. Now, this is a roving yarn, so it may snag a little bit. Okay, I'm going to flip this over and work from the, as if I was going to be knitting, because that's actually really easy to solve in that direction. So you can flip your knitting around just like that. So I'm just using an appropriate size crochet hook. It doesn't really matter the size. I happen to be using a size E. It's just what I grabbed. Okay, you can see how it's a little harder with this one because it is grabbing. All right, so I've got all the way down to the stitch that was the issue. And this is actually the bar that was messed up. So it wasn't the one I grabbed here. Let's go pull that out. All right. So now all I want to do is pick up this stitch here. Okay. Make sure all the things are not snagged. Okay. So we're just going to go insert from the front, whether you're on the back or the front, just the front of the knit stitch. And then find this first bar here, and then pull it, turn your hook. If you're not familiar with using a crochet hook, you want to turn it so that this hook grabs onto here, and then it goes up through that loop that you first had on there. So let's do that again. Let me get a little closer. We're going to grab the first bar that you come to, and it's when you turn it, it's going to lock it in there, and it's going to go through this part here, which sort of makes a teardrop shape on the other side. So you turn it, and you get it, and we've done 2 stitches here. So we're just going to pull up and go through all of these just like that. And what it does is it makes a purl stitch on the other side. Okay, and so now this is ready to place back on our needles. And then we're going to flip over because that was the wrong side. And this one, I wanted to show you how to set it up. So when I put this on here, make sure that it's in the proper position. So if I pull it, do you see how we have a left leg of the stitch and a right leg of the stitch? I'm going to pull up right through the middle, and you can really see that. I'm going to pick that up with one needle and then place it back on this left side, like his little horse. So I have a little man facing this way, and he's got, this is his right leg, and this is his left leg, or a little lady, whatever. So now I've got it situated in the proper direction, and I can move on. And then I'll just go ahead and purl that stitch. So the same thing would happen if you were on a purl or a knit column, and you can just flip it over to the right side of the work. There's another way to do it, but this is the way I want to solve it right now, especially for a beginner pattern. So continue going until you have met your 3 inches and you're at your first marker. Now on a DPN, you won't be at a marker. Oopsie, now I've gone backwards. Let me unknit. Okay, let's go backwards here. We're going to pull up on our stitch and find that last one we did, go backwards. Okay, and that's how we unknit. So I had accidentally knitted that purl stitch, and I'm going to yarn forward and then purl. So that's another way. So this is knitting backwards. So we're fixing mistakes as we go. Okay, so on the circular needle, you just keep going until you get to that first marker. On the DPN, you'll go until you get to the part where it's marked in the very beginning like this. Okay, so here's my marker on my circulars, and then on the DPNs, you won't see that marker, but you'll see it down here. All right, I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so we're on the part of our pattern here. This is my printed out version. We're going to repeat until we have 3 inches, and mine's just a little short, but I've got a larger sample I'm going to show you in a minute, which shows it at the 3 inches. So you're going to keep going until you get the 3, and I'm going to show you how to increase here. This is where it says next round. We'll knit and then increase 4 stitches evenly around to get 84 stitches. Now we are at 80 stitches now, and so we're going to divide up our 80 stitches into 4 sections. So that would be 20 stitches. So we're going to work 1 stitch and make it into 2, and then knit the next 19 stitches. So I'm going to show you how to make the increase on here. And then I'm going to move over to my double pointed needles to show you how it can work really well on that one without having to think and count out as much. So I'm going to slip my needle over to the right. We're going to knit front and back as an increase. So we're going to work into our stitch just like we're going to knit, and then leave this stitch on here. Twist your needle to the back and slip it into that left leg of the stitch, that back part, and then you're going to wrap around, knit over, and just pull that on through. And now we have an extra stitch on our needles. So we're going to yarn over and knit 2, 3, 4, and just keep going until you get 19. Okay, I've knit my 19th stitch, and this is where we're going to start the next section where we increase. So you're just going to knit front and back. We work in here to knit the stitch. Don't drop the old one off. Twist our needle to the back and go into that stitch here and knit. Okay, so we've increased, and we're going to knit 19 more. So continue around until you get back to this marker, and I'll meet you in just a moment. Okay, I'm on my double pointed needles here, and of course I've got my stitches distributed evenly around my DPN, so I have 20 stitches on each needle, which is going to make this next row increase right here from 80 stitches to 84. Very easy for me. I'm just going to knit front and back for that first stitch, and if you watch the circular part of the video, you'll be able to get this. If you need it again, just rewind. So we're going to stick my free needle in, my 5th one, into this first stitch. And by the way, this stitch marker down here is marking where the beginning of my round was. You can add in another one here that kind of moves along. It's just a removable one, and just keep going. So we're going to take my empty 5th needle here and knit it. Again, just leave this other one to the back. So we're going to knit this and leave the old stitch on for a moment. Twist the needle back to the back of this leg of the stitch here and stick it in, and then knit that. And that's knitting in the back loop, and that's which also in the back of the stitch, if you want to call it that. So now we've actually got 2 stitches on here. We increased 1, and now you're just going to knit to the end of that needle. Okay, that's 19. All right, so now I've got those on there, and I can rotate it around. So I've got my 20 stitches, and we want to increase again on this next needle. So knit in the front, twist it to the back, and knit. Okay, and then knit to the end of that DPN. Okay. I've worked my first 2 double pointed needles, and I need to continue increasing. So we're knit front and the back, knit to the end of the needle, knit front and back, knit to the end of the needle, and then I'll join you back up, and we'll switch from this US 8 5 millimeter up to the US 10, and we will start working with the circular needle again. It's the same if you're working on DPNs or the circular needle for the main body of the hat. So we just increased, and we're going to work on this part in the circular needles, and then we'll start shaping the hat. And we work on shaping the hat. I'm actually going to show you on the DPNs because you'll see how easy it is. And the same technique can be used on the circular needles, but the DPNs are going to help separate these out a little bit better for you. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so we're ready to change to our larger double pointed needles or our circular needles. Again, in this one, I'm using the circulars, but you can switch to the double pointed. Now, if you have been working with the double pointed, make sure that you have a 6-inch one, because the 5-inch is going to be a little too short once you get to the body of the hat, because it starts expanding more. So if you only have 5-inch, they're going to be a little short. All right, let's keep going. Now, when we're ready to keep going, normally you would just keep moving like this. So when you change out the needles, you can just totally ignore this one on the right here. Now, I can go ahead and slip my stitch marker on over, and then I'll just start working, and it just loads everything onto the new needle. It's that simple, okay? So just ignore this one back here and keep going with the new. Whoops. There's that stitch marker. Okay, and we're going to knit 3 for this first stitch. I know that's kind of hard to see back there. So knit 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we're going to purl and then knit twice. So we're going to purl, knit, okay, and then we purl and knit, and that's exactly what's written. So it has P and K in parentheses right here, and then it says twice. So that's all you do. That's as simple as that. Now we're going to knit 5. So we knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In this round, it may feel a little tighter because you're going from a smaller needle to a larger needle. See how these two different sizes are here? Okay, so now the pattern has us with this asterisk, so we're going to repeat between the knit 3 and then to the end of the knit 5. So do that again. Knit 3, 1, 2, 3. And when you have a parentheses, you do what's in the parentheses. So purl, knit, be sure and move your yarn to the back or else you'll be accidentally increasing. Okay, and then it says twice, so do it again. So purl, and then knit, and then we knit 5. Okay, so that is it for this first round. You're going to continue around until you get to your stitch marker, and then you'll move on to round 2. Everything that you need to know you've already done. It's just a series of knits and purls. And so this one, it starts off with the knit 2, and then we do the same as we did before, except you do it 3 times, and then it ends in a knit 4. So you're moving one of the extra stitches you hear in knit 5, and you're adding that into here, and then this one is taking away here and you're adding it anyway. That's kind of confusing. I shouldn't say that, but basically you're just moving the stitches around, the repeat around, so it ends up shifting. So your hat ends up moving these stitches around to make this little dot pattern. Here's actually a better part of it. So it has this little shaping to it. That's really what you're doing, is you're shaping this little purled dot pattern here. This is actually a seed stitch in the midst of a stocking knit stitch. So when you see all these knit stitches lined up here, those are the stocking knit, and here is a seed stitch, which is it's alternating knits and purls together. They've already figured that out for you. You just need to follow the written directions. So work your first round, second round, third, and then when you get to the fourth round, you're going to make it just as you did on the second round. It'd be helpful once you're completely done with that row, then take your pencil and just check that row off when it's completely done. That way you know you finished it, and then you can repeat this and check that off. Move on to the next page and continue. So these are all very much the same. They're just a series of knits and purls, and then we will join back up when we are ready to take this area and move it down. So this at the end of the 18th round, 17th and 18th rounds, you're actually going to knit. That's it. You just knit all the way around those rounds. And then you're going to work the 1st to the 9th rows once more, okay? And then on this very last round is where we're going to join back up, okay? So after you get on the 8th and 9th rounds and the 17th and 18th rounds, those are all just knit. When we get to this 9th round here, the second time around, I'll meet you back up and we'll start working on this shaping part. Okay, I'll meet you in a moment. Okay, so we're back and I want to show you the hat that I've got so far. I've got my 3-inch brim, and then you can see how it goes in because it's a smaller gauge and also because of the stretchy ribbing. And then it expands out to this hat here. This is the body of the hat. You've got the little seed stitch round dots that you've been making amongst the stocking net. And then you see I've already put it on the DPNs again, the double pointed needles. And what are these little things here? Well, these are small stitch stoppers. You can get large ones. These are actually really inappropriately sized, but it's just keeping my stitches on. And so what I was talking to you earlier about getting the right DPN, I accidentally got the wrong size. I have 6-inch for the smaller ones and I have 5-inch for the larger ones. And so when I was waiting, what I did is I put these stitch stoppers on, that way they don't fall off. So don't make my mistake. Make sure you get a 6-inch needle. Okay, so these little guys can just come right off whenever I'm not using them. And it's very important when you are working on DPNs to get you some kind of stitch stopper. You can get any brand, it doesn't really matter, just whatever is going to stay on. And there's so many different ones that are available. Okay, so we're going to work these stitches here. Get my new fresh needle, my 5th needle here. And we're going to work on decreasing. So what we're going to do in this round, let me get my piece of paper out here. And we've worked the 1st to 9th rounds again the second time around. So it's a knit round. I'm making my hat just a little bit longer, so I went ahead and worked this strictly as a knit row, and then now I'm actually going to decrease. But if you don't need another row longer, then just go ahead and knit one of the knit rounds, knit the 8th row around, and then move on to this. So what we're going to do is decrease evenly. For every DPN you have, you're going to take one off. So we're going to knit 18 and then knit 2 together. Okay, so I'm going to get my free needle here, go into my first stitch. We're going to knit 18. And this is just a little loose on here, so I'm going to just go ahead and put that back on here. Okay. All right, so knit 18. Okay, so I've knit 18, but because I have them on the DPNs, I don't have to worry about the number because I've got 2 left on here. So I knit until I have 2 left on my needle, and this is going to be knit 2 together. So you can count them. If you're on your circular, you definitely need to count them. If you're on the DPNs, you just work until you have 2 left on that needle. And then I'm going to stick my needle into both of these stitches. So to the left side of this stitch here, and then to inside the next one. And then yarn over and knit them together. And that's all there is to that. So now that is the decreased. And of course, if you need to put little stoppers on there to help you, you can do that. I'm going to do that until I have them decreased because this became very large. All right, so we're going to move this over and start working on this needle. It's not necessarily to do this, it's just that these are a little short for me today. So we're going to knit until I have 2 stitches left. And if you're working on circulars, just count 18. Just pause your video as you need. Okay, I've got 2 stitches left, or I've knit 18, and now I'll knit 2 together. Okay, so you're going to continue going around and knit the next 18, knit 2 together, knit 18, knit 2 together, and then I'll join you back up for the shaping of the top, shape top first round here. Pause your video and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so here is the fun part. I think it's fun. This is the shaping of the top, and this is the first round. Now, if you're working on the circulars, you're just going to follow these instructions and keep trucking along, and you'll be decreasing 8 stitches every time, and just keep going. So you repeat between the asterisk sections, and then I'll meet you back at the end to show you how to finish this off and weave it through and break the yarn, weave in your tail. Now, for people who are using the double pointed needles, you're going to see the really cool benefit on this because you get to use your needles to its advantage, and you're going to knit 8 and then knit 2 together, knit 8, knit 2 together, and then you're done with that needle. You move on to the next one. Knit 8, knit 2 together, knit 8, knit 2 together. And then when you finish that round, the next time you knit 7, knit 2 together. So basically it divides that needle into half. Okay, so I start off with 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10. So I start off with 20 stitches on here, and then it takes it down to less by 2, and then it keeps decreasing by 2 throughout this needle. So these needles will have 2 stitches less each round. Look over here on this photo. So it's going to decrease every time. So every time you see this little part here, this is where you're knitting 2 together. So it works out really nicely and makes this nice shape, and on the DPNs it really excels. So let's keep going here. So we're going to start off and knit our 8 stitches. Just drop that one down. And make sure, especially if you have been using circulars and now you're doing DPNs, make sure that you kind of cinch this one up. We don't want to leave like a long gap here in the back between our last round and then the first round here. So get that gap cinched up here and knit 8. Okay, and then we're going to knit 2 together. Okay, and then now that we've knit the first half of this DPN, now we know that we can just knit until there's 2 left. This is 8, so if you want to double check your numbers, make sure you're good. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then we have 2 left, and then knit these together. Okay, we move on to the next one. Rotate that around. Okay, so this next round, this next needle is going to get worked just like as you did before with the knit 8, knit 2 together, and keep going. So you're going to get all the way back to the stitch marker here, and we go on to the next round, and it says the second and alternate rounds knit. So every other row you will just knit all the way around, and then just like we did 8 this time, then we go down to knit 7, knit 2 together, and repeat and then knit a row because it's an alternate row. And then the 5th row, we're going to do 6. Then that means the row after that will be knit. And then we go to the 7th row, which is knit 5, knit a row, do the knit 4, knit a row, knit 3. See how it's going down by 1 each time? So, and it's repeated twice over those 2 needles. So you're diminishing by 2, you're decreasing by 2. And go all the way down to here until you have 12 stitches on your needles. And on the DPNs, you're just going to have a few stitches on each needle. Okay, so we're just going to have 3 on each one. All right, I'll see you at this point here. Okay, so we've completed the 13th round here where we knit 2 and then knit 2 together, and you have 24 stitches left. So we've got 6 stitches on 4 needles here. That makes the 24. And what's different about the 14th round is we are just going to knit 2 together and repeat across. So you're actually going to knit 2 together 3 times on each needle and end with 12 stitches. Well, let's do that right now. Okay, knit these 2 together and then these 2 together. I've got 3 on here, and then turn. And making it on these double pointed needles, although it looks like just a bunch of pickup sticks, it is actually easier because on the if we had the cables stretching around here, they can get in the way as well. So I just flip my hat over and continue. Knit 2 together. Okay. 2 together. And this hole in the center is just slowly getting smaller. And this should be the last one. Okay. All right, so now I've got 3 stitches on each needle. Okay, and this hole is really getting closed up here. Now what we want to do is take our tapestry needle. So we got our wide-eyed tapestry needle, and we're going to thread through. So this says, so we've got 12 stitches left, break yarn, leaving a long end, thread in through the remaining stitches and drop tightly. So let's do that right now. I'm just going to cut a piece here, long strand, thread that through. Okay, just going to go from where it connects here. I'm going to go to the very first stitch and just slip it on through my stitches. Okay. And there we go. So we've got this all drawn in. Just pull that on in. And then tighten that up and secure. So we'll just pass this back through. I like to pass it through one more loop. And then go inside. Turn the hat inside out. And go ahead and loop through the stitch here. And then go through this loop before drawing it all the way through and make a knot. Okay, nice and tight, and it's secure. And then just go through a couple more stitches, and then we'll cut that off. And that is your top crown shaped so nicely. And so this in the end here, this is the beginning. Of course, we can take out any stitch markers that are left. And this is the first beginning spot. You see where it's nice and joined here. If you did this join, it will help you keep the jog out, and then you don't have to remember how to, because otherwise if you didn't connect it in this way, then you would have a gap here and you would need to use your tapestry needle to get that in. Let's go ahead and finish this up here. I'm going to use our tapestry needle and turn it inside out. We're going to work our stitch up in here. Turn it around so you can really see what I'm doing. And now I'm just going to take my needle and we're going to go up through this column of knit stitches, and we're just going to work our way around like this. So we're going to go in the side of this V stitch and up through the middle, in the side of the V stitch and up through the middle, in the side through the middle, all the way up. And just pull that on through. All right. And do a few more here. And so after we go up as far as we'd like, then come back down and go around the side here. Get that in there. Okay, we got the stitches in there. Cut that off. And our this remains stretchy on the inside here, and it's not going over to the side, and you can't see it from the front. And that is our hat. Isn't that cute? I love it. I hope you enjoyed making your Patons polka dot knit hat today from Yarnspirations.com. Please be sure and tag us on social media so we can see what you made. On behalf of Yarnspirations and Good Knit Kisses, I'm your host, Kristen, wishing you happy knitting. Bye-bye.